eh, Erika y Cristel, y también nos acompañan dos ejecutivos de NATO Pharma de Estados Unidos, Eric Anderson y Joseph Hassan, quienes en breves segundos les voy a trasladar el micrófono para que pues, demos inicio a nuestra presentación de hoy. Las preguntas, Eric, can they ask in the middle of the presentation or at the end?
Questions are okay at any time.
Okay. Las preguntas pueden ser en cualquier momento o dejarlas al final como ustedes prefieran. Nuevamente, gracias de parte de NATO Pharma y Repinsa. So, Eric, I'll leave the microphone to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Julio. And hola amigos, gracias por acompañarnos hoy para aprender sobre la vitamina K2, MenaQ7. No dude en hacer preguntas en cualquier momento. And that's the balance of my Spanish for today. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to shout out. As we get started, especially with the folks who have joined us who are not with Repinsa, are there any areas of interest that you especially would like to see covered? The differences between K1 and K2, the deficiency, market trends, product formulation concepts. Is there anything that jumps out that we need to spend extra time on? Roxana or Milton, Axel. Well, why don't we do this? We'll just go through the presentation. If you have any questions and need anything to be explained, then please just go ahead and unmute yourself and shout out. So the question that we've been discussing for the past few years is the loss of bone or osteoporosis and hardening of the arteries or atherosclerosis. Are these normal byproducts of aging, or is this evidence of a vitamin deficiency or insufficiency? And we hope to convince you that it is the latter, that these conditions are actively impacted by a vitamin. Vitamin K2 we now recognize is necessary from all of life stages, from before pregnancy, during pregnancy, throughout development, throughout all aspects of our life. And we can show you some of the evidence of this. The key indications for vitamin K2 really began with bone. That was how vitamin K2 was really discovered. Our company, NATO Pharma, started when we learned of the studies in Japan, where folks in northern Japan who ate a lot of this fermented food called natto had stronger bones and fewer fractures. It's now expanded. We now recognize that not only does vitamin K2 put calcium in the bones where you want it, but it keeps it out of the arteries where you don't. A lot of implications for cardiovascular health. Children have very fast growing bones. We have some nice studies to share with you. And we're learning through population studies, through epidemiological studies, we're learning that there's a huge impact on brain health, on lung health, on kidney health, nerves. Anywhere in our bodies that we have circulation, blood, and calcium, there is an opportunity for the calcium to go in the soft tissues where we don't want it, rather into the bones where we do want it, for example. As we look at the research today, it's important to note that all of the industry claims today that are made regarding the efficacy of vitamin K2 are based upon studies sponsored by NATO Pharma, and specifically on MenaQ7, MK7, vitamin K2 is MenaQ7, our specific brand. We know that calcium is extremely important for bone health, but we also now recognize without other nutrients, including things like vitamin D3, magnesium, boron, other ingredients, that it doesn't get properly utilized. And we know that vitamin K2 plays one of the most important roles in this aspect. But in fact, it turns out that many of us are deficient, and so we're not getting the calcium to go where it wants. So what's the difference between vitamin K and vitamin K2? Well, vitamin K itself was discovered in 1929. These two gentlemen, Henrik Dahn and Edward Doozy, they were Dutch, And they recognized that vitamin K played an essential role in coagulation. And in Dutch, coagulation is spelled with a K, hence vitamin K. But it's an essential vitamin that activates vitamin K dependent proteins. And this for many years was the only recognized benefit of vitamin K. But we now know that there is another form of the vitamin called vitamin K2, and this is actually plural, the menaquinones. There are a number of menaquinones that we find in the diet and are now available as dietary supplement. So K1 and K2, they all share the same structural head, the naphthoquinone ring, and it's distinguished by the number of side chains and the number of double bonds, double coagulations on those side chains. So vitamin MK4, for example, has a longer side chain and 1, 2, 3, 4 double bonds. I'm not sure if you could see my cursor. MK7 has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 double bonds. So in nature, we'll see everything from menaquinone 4, 5, all the way to menaquinones 11, 12, but it's really the menaquinones 6, 7, 8, 9 that are the most active. Practically, vitamin K1 is active in the liver. The body takes what it needs to clot blood first for survival. But outside of the liver, extrahepatically, in the cardiovascular system, in our joints, in our kidneys, in our lungs, the menaquinones, vitamin K2, is most active. How does it work? Vitamin K2 activates vitamin K dependent proteins. One of the very most important proteins is osteocalcin. Osteo for bone and calcin for calcium. This is what the body uses to build healthy bone matrix. There's another protein, matrix GLA protein, MGP, and this is the only elucidated, the only known inhibitor of calcification of the arteries. However, we now recognize that most of us are deficient. Most of us in the West simply don't get enough vitamin K2 in the diet. What are the best sources? We know for vitamin K1, the blue bars, it's leafy green vegetables. Whereas in vitamin K2 in Japan, this fermented food called natto, the bacteria produce a lot of vitamin K2 as MK7 through fermentation. In the West, our best source is cheese, fermented cheeses. Now, of course, especially in America, as we've moved from cheese from the farm to that yellow stuff that they put on your McDonald's hamburger, we've clearly changed the content of what we're eating. We're just not getting the same amounts of vitamin K2 in our whole foods that our parents did. As a result, we're not getting enough vitamin K2 in the diet. And even consuming multiple plates of these healthy foods, we're not really getting the amount of K2 that would be resulting in optimal health. Hence, we recommend a supplement, supplementing the diet with vitamin K to really maximize this essential nutrient. Globally, in virtually every market, the recommended daily intake for vitamin K is based solely on blood clotting, on coagulation. We're not talking about the other roles of vitamin K2. Now there are many papers that have become published and are now expanding, looking at other impacts, certainly for bones, hearts, and kidneys, for example, but also diabetes, Alzheimer's, mental acuity, neuropathy, peripheral artery disease, eye health, lung health. And these are observational studies, and some of these are quite exceptional. One of my favorites is a study that points out that low outcome or low intake of vitamin K puts you at a greater risk of cardiovascular disease than smoking. And that seems quite dramatic, but accurate. Natto Pharma is leading the effort to establish an RDI, a daily recommended intake for vitamin K2. We first published a paper on deficiency. We then published a paper describing the differences between K1 and K2 and how that is important to the body and how it performs different functions. We published a paper on vitamin K2, arguing for an RDI. There are 9 criteria of why a substance should have a recommended daily intake, including an impact on health and looking at the amounts that are in the diet and the need to get more. There are 9 criteria that we've addressed, and we're continuing to promote this. And just recently, CRN came together, a number of the members, and wrote a paper just on this very issue. We need to modernize our recommended daily intake, really in the United States, and we're pushing for this also in Europe and other markets. So let's look at the science. Again, any questions, please don't hesitate to shout out. There are now 22 published human studies on MenaQ7. There are 3 underway. The very important study in Osteoporosis International was the first study to show that vitamin K2 alone significantly impacted bone health in healthy adults. We've published in Thrombosis and Hemostasis, the benefits for cardiovascular health for vascular elasticity. And we've published a follow-up also looking at cardiovascular health in men and women. And we have a number of trials in kids. So let's move through this. There's a lot to unpack on this slide, so we'll take this one a little slower. If we're looking at age on the bottom axis, we achieve peak bone mineral density in the late teens, 90%. And then in the early 20s, we hit our peak bone mineral density. Now the blue line, this is for men, and the green line is for women. Men tend to have bigger skeletons, so we peak higher. We have a higher bone mass, bone mineral density. Women with smaller skeletons tend to peak lower. Then in the 40s and 50s, women experience perimenopausal, menopausal bone loss due to hormonal changes. And that impacts for a few years. And then later in life, it begins to parallel with the men again. The big difference is men have lost less, so they have more yet to give before the risk of fracture. Women, because they started with less and had the loss associated with hormonal changes, are at a much higher risk of fracture. But clearly, this health condition impacts both men and women. Populations that consume a lot of vitamin K2 are much less susceptible to this risk. This is reiterating what I said. 45% of women and 20 to 25% of men over the age of 50 will experience a fracture related to a loss of bone mass. And we're talking about the integrity of the strength, the structure, the healthy bone matrix. In the study in Osteoporosis International, it was a 3-year study. As adults, our bones turn over very slowly. Every 2 years, we get a new skeleton. So we had to follow this for a long period of time. So the researchers chose 3 years and looked at bone mineral content and density. What this showed over 3 years is, unfortunately, the placebo continued to lose mass and strength at the expected rate, about 0.5% a year, whereas the MenaQ7 group of healthy women, they saw a preservation of their bone mass and strength. So this was most pronounced in the 2nd and 3rd year, showing that the impact of nutrition can truly make an impact in long-term health. In children have very fast-growing skeletons, and they have a lot of that protein, osteocalcin, that's not active. It needs to be active to build bone. So whereas we may take 10 years to completely turn over our skeleton, children's skeletons can double every 3 or 5 years. Their need is much higher. This study, published in British Journal of Nutrition in 2009, looked at 60 kids, boys and girls, healthy, And they looked at that protein, osteocalcin. Is it active or inactive? Compared to baseline, the group that took MenaQ7 had a significantly greater increase in the activation of osteocalcin, leading to healthier bones, healthier outcomes. It's important to note that there was no safety issue with this whatsoever. In order to do a study with any population, you have to establish safety first. And with children, it's especially difficult. Show that it's completely safe and that there's a good justification for doing the study in the first place. So this was quite impressive. The cardiovascular study was, I think, a significant breakthrough because the benefits of vitamin K in bone, I think, have been generally accepted for some time. MenaQ7, for example, is a pharmaceutical in Japan for more than 20 years. Our study with MK7, the fermented natural form of it, was the first study to show at nutritional doses that you can have an impact. Well, now we're looking at 180 micrograms per day of MenaQ7 and looking at arterial health. So again, a nutritional dose. The researchers looked at aortic stiffness. How much does the artery flex when our heart beats? We have a pulse. We can feel that very easily in the wrist. The artery expands and contracts. And you can also look at the speed of the blood from the heart to a monitor in the neck and a monitor in the groin. This will give you a pulse wave velocity. How fast does the blood move? Clearly, if you take a nice flexible hose and it turns into a very hard pipe, that the speed is going to increase, as will inflammation. So this was a way to really measure the impact over time. In this trial over 3 years, the placebo group continued to stiffen. Their arteries continued to stiffen. Whereas introducing MenaQ7 to the healthy participants saw even a reversal of age-related hardening of the arteries. The arteries became more elastic. So think about this. Cardiovascular disease is the #1 cause of death. The #1 cause of cardiovascular disease is atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, and we are actually reversing that with a vitamin. This is pretty extraordinary, and there are a number of studies upcoming that support this and continue to build upon the body of knowledge. And what we're really looking at specifically in cardiovascular health is, can you break that curve? As we're aging, our arteries are getting harder. Is it possible to stop that? So we showed in our 3-year study that you can actually introduce 180 micrograms of MenaQ7 and halt and even regress the hardening of arteries. In another 1-year study in healthy men, we showed again stopping of the progression. So we're breaking the curve, and this is nothing less than extraordinary. I think that this is something that our industry should be very proud of. If you think of products like omega-3 fatty acids, you'll recognize that folks that consume a lot of omega-3s have better health outcomes, and that turns into supplements. Well, that's what's happening here. Research is demonstrating that nutrients, vitamins, in this case, vitamin K2, can have a significant impact on bone health and heart health. So really tremendous. What would we recommend to combine with K2 in dietary supplement formulations? Well, certainly vitamin D3 is an obvious choice. Vitamin D3, in addition to all of the other pro-hormonal benefits it plays in terms of mood, the sunshine vitamin and cardiovascular benefits, it plays a very specific role in the creation of osteocalcin. So the body needs vitamin D3 to make osteocalcin and vitamin K2 to activate it so that it can do its job. The body needs vitamin D3 to make matrix GLA protein, but it needs vitamin K2 to activate that protein so it can do its job. And the result is stronger, healthier bones and flexible arteries. There are a number of studies now that have published looking at vitamin K and vitamin D status of kids in stress fractures or spiral fractures. where the child's out playing on the playground. You'll come home with a compound fracture with the bone snapped in half, but you have stress fractures. And improving vitamin K status, vitamin D status across the board really helps to reduce these risks. So we really think that K2 and D3 always have a place together. And this is true also in adults, of course. We like omega-3s. In fact, the researchers who were looking at vitamin K2 in very early years said, wow, this would be a great combination of omega-3s. Omega-3s help with inflammation, they help with triglycerides in the blood, they help support healthy cholesterol levels, but they have no impact on calcification. But wow, K2 has an impact on calcification. What a fantastic synergy between these two products. And we actually have IP in different markets around the world for this combination. So it's nice that our researchers were able to have the foresight to recognize these benefits. Talk a little bit about Nato Pharma. Again, all of the industry claims are made on MenaQ7. There are other sources of vitamin K2. Some are pretty good, some are not so great. The biggest difference is we've taken the time to show that our MenaQ7 is effective, and not just in changing blood levels, but in long-term outcome studies, promoting bone mass and strength, promoting flexible arteries, helping kids maximize their bone health. So this is all based on science, right? What's really interesting about these studies, here's a list of heart health studies, for example. These are recent, these are the past 10 years. So this is a relatively new area of knowledge. Bone health studies going back to 2012, 2013. There's not a lot of new work done on just vitamin K2 alone because it's very well established, but we see vitamin K2 showing up in multi-ingredient formulations. So we would expect to see more research on those. In kids, again, our studies in MenaQ7 with very nice outcomes on both safety and efficacy. And we're starting to look at combination products. Can we deliver K2 in combination with D3, with omega-3s, with vitamin C? What impact does this have on body composition, which is really very interesting, a new area of discovery? How does this impact in terms of delivery and dose response? So there's been a tremendous amount of work done. So a little bit on the commercial side. We know that industry awareness is growing, and Nato Pharma has driven this through the many means of media, primarily in the industry. And let's make the industry very broad. These are purveyors of supplements, dietary supplements, and functional foods globally that are interested in nutrition. So this is not really, mass market food. This is not McDonald's. These are companies that care about nutrition and augmenting the diet. We do quite a bit speaking directly to practitioners. We bring our experts to presentations, speaking to doctors, traditional MDs, speaking to alternative care practitioners, and speaking to a variety of nutritionists, naturopaths, homeopaths, and we're doing this globally. We're really trying to build the awareness, and so many people go to their trusted practitioner and they say, well, tell us about this. Tell us about what we need for our health. So it's important that we educate. We talk to the retailers through retail magazines, through articles, through magazines that health interested people follow. As a result, we really work to support our customers. We work with them hand in hand through collaborative marketing. And our customers from the UK to Australia to the United States, they all have nice things to say about us, hopefully, because we're trying really hard to support them. What about market trends? We see compounded growth rates year over year for the past 5 years, pushing 40%. 2021 were pretty exceptional because of all the health concerns with immunity. And we saw very, very strong growth. But what this also means is we're getting a momentum that's now becoming an inertia where more and more companies are aware of the benefits of K2 and are incorporating it. The sales today are probably a little bit above 110 million in ingredient sales. So if you look at that from a retail perspective, then this is really a billion-dollar market today, which is extraordinary. And it continues to grow year over year, which means we're getting the word out. Also, this means that your brand customers who are making the supplement products are interested, and your consumers are interested. So we're getting the benefit of the science, and it's now showing up commercially. In addition to growth in terms of sales, the Google searches, right? People are saying, what's this vitamin K2 stuff? It is growing extraordinarily. The number of publications citing our vitamin K2 papers and other vitamin K research is growing extraordinary and continues. So building upon building. And this is resulting in across the board awareness. One thing that's come up a lot, and we don't make a huge, a lot of noise about this, is what about COVID-19 and vitamin K2? Well, we know, of course, that this is a very aggressive virus that causes significant health issues. And the folks that have the worst outcomes have comorbidities, things like cardiovascular health issues and lung health issues, and other things like obesity, right? This really impacts. And what it says is to us is that your underlying health is really going to help determine how well you're able to cope with a challenge like COVID-19. Well, in fact, some of the researchers that we've worked with for many years in the Netherlands looked at vitamin K status in patients that were in the hospital with the virus, and they were able to look at their vitamin K status and their outcomes. And they were able to separate that into folks that went home very quickly, folks that had extended stays, and folks that did not do well. And at the end of the day, the better vitamin K status was positively correlated with better outcome. So if you have a better vitamin K2 status, you're going to have a better cardiovascular health, right? Well, it also turns out that the fibers that help make our arteries elastic, the elastin, also are a very important part of the lungs. And these fibers can become calcified, and the researchers are actually able to measure breakdown of the fibers. And a paper that was done in 2019, looking at patients with COPD, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder, it was shown that the better vitamin K status was better correlated with outcomes, again, looking at the breakdown of elastin. So we feel that this is an important part of the body of evidence about vitamin K, but not about COVID. This is what we believe is important to maximize your body's health response, your body's immune response, and across the board, that should result in better health outcomes. We know that social media hits are increasing, citations are increasing. We'll make this deck available to Repinsa, and certainly they're happy to share it with you. A few more slides, based upon where can we go with this exceptional vitamin. We know that our customers, our brands, our consumers want to see the vitamin in different delivery systems. We have a solutions platform, powders that are going into hard gel tablets, into powdered drink mixes, into sachets, oil-based solutions for soft gels, for example, water dispersible solutions if you want to go into a meal replacement or a protein product or something like that to make it mix up. And then encapsulation solutions. If you combine vitamin K2 with some of the more aggressive forms of calcium and magnesium, it can become very, vitamin K2 likes an acidic environment. The minerals can become alkaline. There can be a negative interaction. So we've created several different encapsulation technologies for use in multi-ingredient formulations. And we're happy to work with you to make the best choice for your particular application. And that's part of our R&D services group. Now that Nato Pharma has joined forces with Gnosis, we have a very broad understanding, and we have a presence in multiple markets around the world. Taking our knowledge, our ability to put the performance-based solutions together, we can help deliver a high-performing final product. I took a shot of some of these products from Brazil and Australia. We just were collecting them for a trade show in Las Vegas last week. But if you go to MenaQ7.com, you can see from globally all of the products that contain MenaQ7, and you can find out where they're available. And there's a lot of different ideas of formulations out there. I'll give you a few examples. For kids, combinations of vitamin K2 and D3 for bone, for teeth development, helping to promote the tooth health, enamel development, of course, for immune support. Active lifestylers, 50 is the new 40 or 60 is the new 50. Let's face it, as we age, we want to be active. We want to be, we want to be mobile, ambulatory, right? So this combination for some of the biggest issues, heart health, inflammation health, bone health, fantastic combinations. For our vegan friends, something I forgot to mention, in the studies looking at vitamin K and consumption, cardiovascular health outcomes are significantly impacted by vitamin K2. In these studies, vitamin K1 has never been implicated for cardiovascular health. So our vegan friends may not be eating the fermented cheeses, may not be taking the supplement. They're not getting the same advantage. So we would say, absolutely, if you're vegan or vegetarian, look at adding some of these nice ingredients to your diet. So in summary, MenaQ7 has the leader in science, in promoting education, supporting awareness, innovating in looking at delivery systems, resulting in superior products. So we would be very happy to partner with you to try to bring the best MenaQ7 product to your customers. So again, vitamin K2 is needed at all stages of life, above and beyond vitamin K1. MenaQ7 is the form of vitamin K that's been shown to be clinically active outside of the liver, bone health, heart health, and many different applications that we're now learning about. We know that we're deficient in the West, and we know that adding vitamin K2 to the diet as a dietary supplement or part of a functional food can significantly impact human health. And we feel really good about that we're bringing something to the market that can make a change, can make a difference. And thank you to our friends at Repinsa. If you have any questions, we're happy to take them now. And happy to consult with you at any time on any questions you may have about vitamin K2 and applications.
Thank you so much, Eric, for that very interesting presentation. No sé si hay alguna pregunta de alguno de los participantes que quiera atender, que atendamos.
No, gracias, Julio.
Perdón, no se escucha. Bueno, aquí tenemos una pregunta. There's a question here, Eric. Regarding the RDI that you mentioned, do you know what are the suggested levels for each age group?
So the RDIs for vitamin K1 vary. In the United States, it's 90 micrograms per day for women, 120 micrograms per day for men. In Europe, I believe it's roughly 1 microgram per kilo of body weight. What we are now working on is suggesting that that's solely based upon blood clotting, on coagulation, and that outside of the liver, there needs to be an RDI for vitamin K2 for the benefits that we've discussed beyond coagulation. So that's an ongoing process. We know it's going to take many years. But every study we publish increases awareness, increases understanding, and helps us to form that argument. So we're very pleased to continue to promote that process.
Okay, gracias, Eric. And there's another question. Regarding synergy between K2 and iron or zinc, are there any studies or any data that helps validate that?
I'm not sure about either of them specifically. I think that we should talk to some of the leading suppliers of those products, maybe Balchem, and look at that.
Okay.
Also, there's a study out of Canada. It's called the COMB study, and it looked at a variety of vitamins and minerals, and vitamin K2 was one of those. So I think we'll see more multi-ingredient studies coming out. Our trials have been specifically looking at MenaQ7 alone to eliminate any other variables. We know that the outcomes, the changes that we see in our studies are a specific result of adding vitamin K2 as MK7 to the diet. We haven't done studies with calcium, for example, and calcium is a very common product to combine with K2, particularly in bone health formulations. But at least in the West, we get enough calcium in our diet. Vietnam, for example, they do not. And powdered milk is a very big food category there because they're not getting enough calcium in the diet. In those markets, we see enrichment as a much more direct goal for utilization of calcium. In the West, we see it more as dietary supplements and K2D3, for example.
Thank you. Thank you.